welcome to another episode of Insufficient Friends. I'm Kevin. She's Nikki.
Hi.
And Nick, how was your week?
It actually wasn't bad. We had the week off because it was our, anniversary and 4th of July, so we just took off the whole week.
Yes.
Which I realized for the rest of our lives, we will always have 4th of July week off because we made it a point that on our wedding anniversary, we will always make time.
That's nice.
And so I'm like, also, that's 4th of July.
Yeah.
So close to it.
And since you're mentioning 4th of July, for everybody listening, we recorded 2 episos at the same time. So this was
probably not actually going to be the same.
This is us from the past. So hello from the past.
Yeah.
But this makes me think of something that I thought about this morning. Is we need to get better at remembering when the holidays are, because we keep forgetting to tell people like have a happy whatever, and we didn't do Father's Day. We forgot Father's Day.
So much work. I don't even know the holidays.
There's only 12 of them.
Okay, so here's what I do. At the beginning of the year, I spend like an hour. I go through the holiday calendar. I will take off if it's to make it a long weekend or something, if I can do that, I will do it. And it's on my calendar January 1st because I don't want anyone to schedule meetings for me, anything like that.
Then you just don't think about it for the rest of the
year. The week pops up and I'm like, oh, yeah. I get it all taken care of in the beginning of the year, and then I just don't pay attention.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, happy Independence Day.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah, happy Independence Day. But anyway, it was a.
Did you do anything for 4th of July?
I had a couple hot dogs.
Did you go anywhere or were you here?
No, I was home.
Okay.
I had to work. Too. I had to work, so it didn't really make a difference. I only had to work one of the jobs, which was nice. I had one off, but I pretty much just used the time to sleep more.
Yes. Yeah, we took a nap that day. We took a nap in the afternoon because with dogs, we were up till 2. So it's not.
Did they freak out with the fireworks?
Opie did well, which is weird because he's usually the one that has the anxiety. But Millie freaked out so much. We had to put Opie's anxiety jacket on her and give them both peanut butter mats and sit there and hold them.
Yeah.
Some spoiled dogs.
Yeah.
But they get so scared. It's so sad. It's not a fun night for us.
Yeah.
And I refused to leave them alone, because a lot of people are like, well, just go do something. Leave them at home and leave them a blanket and stuff. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, but they're gonna.
It's traumatizing.
Yeah,
to them.
they're.
I know they're dogs, but to us they're like kids. So.
Well, and it is traumatizing to animals. It is that's.
Yeah, last year a dog from down the street, 10 houses down, got out, and I brought it back to the people because it had got out because it got scared.
Yeah,
So I'm like, I just don't want to risk it. I'd rather just stay home, cuddled up with the dogs, and watch a movie.
Yeah, I get that. We also had some crazy weather this week. It was flooding. Everywhere was flooding.
Yes.
Which
even a building collapsed.
Yeah, building partially collapsed in downtown Columbia. We had a bunch of flooded streets. And just.
And flooding's dangerous too.
Unfortunately, there was one lady
saw
that died.
The elderly
around
couple.
Here.
It's no joke.
Yeah.
We get some crazy weather here, even though we're smack dab in the middle of the country. Tornadoes, rain, no matter what it is, the people make memes and stuff because we love to go tornado chasing and watch the weather and stuff. But there comes a point where you do take it seriously because it is extremely serious.
It's dangerous, and it can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And then right now also you've got the hurricane down in the Caribbean that's
lots of weather stuff going on.
It's been an interesting week because we're dealing with some things here like flooding and weather things, but it was fine. I didn't really do anything special. I have been I don't feel like I've heard as many fireworks this year.
We heard more than last year in our neighborhood, but I think that's because around us we own our house, but there's a lot of apartment rentals and houses for rent around us. We're basically the only ones on our street that own, which is a whole nother issue that I have a very long rant about. But anyways, but everyone around us is different than last year. So everyone was doing fireworks. And so I think it made it worse than last year. But that was just in our little neighborhood.
Okay. I didn't feel like I heard. I mean, I've heard some the last couple of days, but I felt like it went longer last year, like more time, like the whole week before and after. Yeah. Whereas this year I only heard them like the 3rd, the 4th, and then I heard some last night.
Well, since we're outside city limits too, we heard them all week long. Yeah. Now, it was definitely way more on the 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
But ever since 2 weeks ago is when we first started hearing it. Because around this time, you start playing the game, was it gunshots or fireworks? It's not a fun game. Like, should we let the dogs out? Should we take them outside? Or was it fireworks? Because it started about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So outside city limits, it's definitely worse than inside.
But me and my dad talked about this, and I don't know what you think. I haven't seen or at least noticed as many fireworks stands as I used to.
There's a lot less. I saw maybe 4
around
us, whereas I feel like in previous years, granted I haven't been here that long, there were like 7 or 8.
Yeah, because I know they're doing more development and building building other businesses around here, and those tents would just go into temporary places. Yeah. But like just over here next to us, in the past, there used to be like 3 fireworks stands right like at the I-70 exit, and there's not any.
Yeah.
Like right now. So
and I don't know if it's like lack of interest or stricter regulations or what the reason is. For me, myself, and my family, the people around, I just feel like there's a lack of interest anymore. We don't, growing up, used to buy fireworks, and yes, we were young, but even, you know, as we got a little older, but we're still kids, it just, the lack of interest just declined heavily, not just from us, but people around us too. So I don't know if that's a trend or if that's just,
I don't know. I also wonder how much the cost has to do with it too, because
prices inflated, I'm assuming.
I mean, I would guess that the prices have gone up, and you know, everything else going up, people don't have as much money right now. But
one thing I do not understand, the fireworks stores, like along I-70 and everything.
The 24/7 year-round ones? Yeah.
Are those a front? Or are they actual businesses? How do they stay in business?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I feel like they're a front for something. I don't know. That's just me throwing stuff out there. Anyways,
allegedly, in our opinion.
This has absolutely nothing to do with our topic of the week. That's just one of my, like, I feel like I have a lot of things that I think are, like, scams or conspiracy
The only thing,
theories
I mean, the only thing I can think of is that there's not that much overhead to run them.
Yeah, you just have to own the massive building.
It's just a big metal building, so you just have to own it, and I think a lot of those places do their own distribution and stuff. So
maybe if they're more suppliers than like stores, then I would get
I think a lot of them are suppliers too. Yeah. And also, you know, they probably make so much money this time of year that it can fund them through the rest of the year too. So
yeah.
Because I know some of these people make a lot of money on like fireworks. Yeah. Like you can make a lot of money owning a fireworks tent.
I just don't have the time or patience.
Yeah, I get that. I
wouldn't want to do it.
We used to shoot off a ton of fireworks. Like we spent so much money on fireworks when I was a little kid, or my dad did. I didn't.
I think it's a waste of money, to be honest.
It is. You're literally blowing up money.
Yeah, and that's what I've always thought. I'm also scared of them. Ever since I was little, I burned myself with those little sticks that
the punks. Oh, the sparklers.
Yeah, sparklers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we used to shoot off tons of fireworks. Yeah. Like we spent so much money on fireworks, but we had fun. But I don't know. I don't
even like fireworks shows. I think I'm pessimistic about 4th of July just because we've always had dogs. I'm always like, why are we doing? I get the point of the holiday. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, why fireworks? Why do people make such a big deal about the fireworks shows? And even when I was little, I was like, I literally don't care about this.
Yeah. I mean,
I like the history of the holiday, reading history, things like that. I mean, anyone who listens knows I love history and American history, but the fireworks. I'm like, why?
I think the fireworks are fun to watch when they're set up to like a show.
Like music
and stuff like that when they're set up to something like that. But just like anymore when it's just like boom, sparkle. And I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, I've literally seen this a million times and it didn't interest me then and it doesn't interest me now.
Because they really haven't changed that much. They're all about the same anymore still. So,
yeah.
But anyway.
That was a really long rant.
Yeah. Shout outs?
Yeah, I do have a shout out this week. So it goes along, it correlates with the topic of our episode this week is Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser.
Okay.
And everything surrounding that topic.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to give a shout out to Stacy. Stacy, this episode is dedicated to you because I was going to talk about the Clydesdales too, of course.
Yeah.
You can't talk about Budweiser and not talk about Clydesdales. So.
No, I think they're synonymous.
Yeah. And Stacy loves the Clydesdales, especially Stan the Man, which is one of our favorites.
Who's just down the road. Mm-hmm. I think he's what like 20
usually he's at
here.
Warm Springs Ranch in Boonville. Yep. Yeah. So, Stacy, I'll send this episode to you so you can listen. So this episode is in honor of Stacy. So our topic for the week. Did you have any shout outs before I
don't think so. There wasn't anything that
I don't think we had any.
We didn't have any like
comments or anything.
Yeah.
Go figure.
I don't think so.
Anyways, our topic of the week is Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, the Clydesdales, just really everything surrounding this empire. Because we went and did a tour.
Yeah. Well, last week we talked about Limp. We did the Limp Brewery tour. When we were there in St. Louis, we did the Budweiser Brewery tour because we're crazy. And we're doing other things. We've got another trip planned in a couple weeks to go back to St. Louis and do some other things. So we're just kind of having fun and doing some stuff. But this time we went to the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. That's a hard word to say.
It is.
In St. Louis, which is the original Anheuser-Busch brewery.
Yeah.
There are now several. I think there's a map on their website. It's going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different breweries in the U.S. You can only do tours at 2 of them, I think.
Yeah, I think
the St. Louis one,
number.
and then the one in New Hampshire, I think.
Yeah, and the St. Louis one is definitely a major tourist destination for sure. Because, and we'll talk about this more, but when you think of St. Louis, there are very few things you think of that are like synonymous, and Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser are one of them. Yeah, or one of the things. Yeah. So
I mean. You've got the baseball stadium's named after the family. It's Busch Stadium. Yeah. Like there's a giant sign that I love on Highway 64 just down from the stadium it's just the Anheuser-Busch sign, but it's a big neon sign. Yeah. And it's been there ever since I can remember. Yeah. And it's beautiful because it's just the big neon sign and it's like that's just part of St. Louis. Yeah.
Definitely they are their histories are intertwined, which is partly why it's so interesting going through the history of the families in the brewery, because really they grew up together. They're like childhood friends, St. Louis and Anheuser-Busch are. So as St. Louis grew, obviously the company grew, and then it grew worldwide, even beyond St. Louis. So very interesting. So it started, so nowadays, obviously we know it's one of the world's largest brewers. Yeah. It started as a very small brewery in 1852. George Schneider opened a small brewery location in St. Louis. And then a couple years later, in 1860, Eberhard Anheuser, a soap manufacturer, bought the brewery, creating Anheuser & Co. Anheuser & Co. And then the following year, his daughter married Adolphus Busch. A brewery supplier. So, hence
Anheuser-Busch.
Yep, exactly. So I've got a little bit more on like the families. So Adolphus Busch was a German immigrant. Also, I did not know this, served in the Union Army during the Civil War for a while. I did not know that. So I thought that was interesting. After the war, he became one of the driving forces of the growth of the company.
Yeah.
So Anheuser-Busch became the first American brewery to use pasteurization, mechanical refrigeration, and were one of the first to use refrigerated rail cars as well. We talked about this a little bit with the Limp Brewery as well. They both kind of used that technology. So definitely innovations that allowed them to, just like Limp, go nationwide and then eventually worldwide. Without things spoiling, going bad, losing quality, stuff like that. Because one of the biggest things is for Anheuser-Busch is quality control.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about because we're going to talk about like our tour specifically later, but they are big on that. So a lot of innovations in that. So Bush died in 1913. And then way later, Anheuser-Busch became a subsidiary, and that's more of the brewery history. But so that's kind of the background of the history of the families and how they created the brewery. And then nowadays, I mean, the family legacy is still there. The brewery complex where we toured is 142 acres. It's a National Historic Landmark. Lots of really cool architecture.
Oh, it's so
I
cool. We were
loved
talking
it.
about when we walk around because there's just so it's nowadays they build up a big glass building and they look cool. Like there's some modern buildings that look really cool. But there's something about like architecture, like with the old stone and brick.
There's so much thought into it. It's not just a building, it's a symbol.
Yeah.
And so you've got these old companies, these historic companies that, especially in the 1900s, the early 1900s, when you're building up these massive buildings after the growth in the company, it's a status symbol.
Yeah.
You know, my building is better than yours. And so it's just fascinating to look at all the details versus a brewery nowadays is just, you know, a metal frame building, which is fine. Most of them make really good beers and everything, but it's just different, you know?
Yeah, it's just something different.
I like it. And then also they've got, you know, Grant's Farm, which was former President Ulysses S. Grant property. And they have lots of animals there. They have some Clydesdales there. There's just so much to the family legacy now and the theme park and stuff. There's just so much.
Yeah.
But definitely an interesting family dynamic and legacy for sure.
Yeah. And it's and it is worth going to see the tour too. The brewery. Yeah.
There's a couple different like tiers of tours. So I think we've both done some of the higher tier tours. Yeah. This last time we just did the cheaper one.
Yeah.
It still includes a tasting and stuff.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see like everything that they do and learn about how they do stuff. You get to go to see the stables.
Yeah.
And
that is like their OG home.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's like hitches all over the country, but seeing the original stables with the Tiffany glass on the top was so pretty.
Yeah.
And obviously I've seen it before, but every time you just walk in and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
It goes back to there was so much thought in the architecture.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, well, he was talking about it. They don't, originally it wasn't designed to be a stable. It was a garage. Like it was for their toys. Like that's what it was for. And it's eventually been changed to where now they use it as a stable whenever the horses are in town for something. Now they have a couple of the red carts there. They have different things like that.
Beer wagons.
But it's just a beautiful. Yeah. It's a freaking stable, or it was a freaking garage, and it's got Tiffany stained glass in it and things like that, which is just crazy. Like
it just shows you the wealth and status. The chandelier in the middle is beautiful, which was from the World's Fair, I believe, right?
I think that's what he said. Yeah. It was part of the World's Fair, but it also has like the eagle in it, which is part of their logo. So
like they were asked to do a chandelier for the World's Fair, and they're like, "Let me just sneak my family name in there."
Which is it's part of the status.
Which why not? If you're that massive of a
if you're that name,
family,
why not do it? So and they take you also to like where they ferment and brew the beers, and they go through the process of it, and they talk about it because and
they talk about their specialty, like the beechwood aging chips and things like that,
which is I don't think a lot of places don't do anymore. it's also one of the largest breweries, like you said, in the country. But
Yeah.
We didn't get to go in part of it this time because it was hot the day that we went, and you can go into the brew house, which is like 100 degrees anyway. So I'm sure
I think they said it was
going
to be like 108 or something in there.
So they were like, we decided not to go in that part of the
because it's like there were a lot of people on the tour and a lot of older people.
Yeah.
So.
But they go through the process and quality, like you talk about quality control. They pull all their water. They said at this location from the Mississippi, Mississippi, because it's right there. But they filter it a bunch, and they have brewmasters that taste the beer from all the facilities around the world. I think she said once a month, right? Every month.
Yeah, it was pretty often because they have to make sure, obviously with an international company, you have to make sure every bottle tastes the same.
Yeah, which is good. Like,
you don't, as they should.
I mean, you don't want to, you don't want to open a bottle and be like, why does this taste like...
That's like, going to a chain restaurant in Missouri versus California, you don't want it to be drastically different if it's like a chain like that,
Yeah.
So, it was very interesting when she kind of described the different, because there was way more than just that different, like, quality control.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
I was watching a video on YouTube from CNN where they talked to some of the people, and one of the guys on it, like, they talked to people that work at the factory and stuff, at the plant. And one of the guys on it said that they're the number one consumer of rice in the United States.
Yeah.
Because they use it for the brewing process, which is, I mean, it makes sense, but good Lord, that's a lot. Like, that's just crazy to think about.
Yeah. It is wild.
What did it say? It's over 100 million barrels a year or something of beer that they do, which is just...
It's a lot of beer.
Astronomical.
But if you think of all their brands... all their lines of business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they have so many, like...
And there's more than just beer, too. So I know that's just, bottles of beer. But
by the way,
they do a lot.
One of the... I don't know what's your thought on it, but what I thought was one of the prettiest places that we saw, speaking back to architecture, was the Beefo area with the fox.
With the foxes.
And because it was one of their... Whenever the prohibition things, they tried to make a drink that was non-alcoholic that they could sell, and that's what this was. And the mascot was a fox. And when you're outside the building, there's a fox on the building. And when you're inside the building, there's tile work with a fox in it.
Yeah,
like
painted. It's so pretty.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's now the bottling facility for Budweiser. But it's just everything about it's cool. The story of the we're kind of jumping around a lot. I'm sorry, but I thought the story of the schoolhouse was funny.
Yes.
So when they were kids, they went to this school.
Yeah.
The schoolhouse eventually, as the brewery grew, it grew around the schoolhouse, and the school was like, okay, well, we can't have a bunch of kids going to school in the middle of a brewery. So they sold the schoolhouse to the brewery, which ended up becoming their corporate headquarters. They turned it into their corporate headquarters. And one of the kids, since he was kind of a pain in the ass when he was a little kid in school, decided as a little spite, I'm now own this place, to take his least favorite teacher's room and turn that into his office, which is just hilarious.
I know, it is funny. Yeah, that was funny. And then one of my favorite stories that the tour guides told was their product during Prohibition, where it was like had all the ingredients to make beer, but it was like, this is not an alcohol. And it was like, here's how to make a homebrew. Disclaimer, this is not how to make a homebrew or something like that. It was so funny.
We do not condone illegal activity.
Yes.
Making beer is illegal.
But that just goes to show like the business sense they had to try to keep the company alive during that time versus we talked last week about the Lemp Brewery and how they just didn't adapt at all. I mean, they just failed during Prohibition.
But Budweiser started packaging ice cream. They packaged a bunch of stuff. They made
it's like
their own.
Have the space. You may as well utilize it.
Yeah, but the funniest thing was we make it. Here's all the malt and barley and everything else in one package.
Yeah,
this is how you can. This is the process of making beer.
And what was it? There was like one ingredient missing. It was like just yeast. Yeah.
But they sold the yeast too in a different package.
Yeah.
So
that was funny to me.
You just put it right together.
I know. Yeah, that's like the best story I've heard about companies adapting during Prohibition. Like,
just
here's how to make it at home. You're missing this one ingredient. Oh, go check out our gift shop.
We've got right over yeast. There. Yeah, it's just go the next aisle over and you can buy more of it.
Yeah, that was really funny to me. But I mean, once again, it's one of the biggest companies in the world in this industry, and
well, the fact that they were able to
there's a reason why.
That,
yeah,
is part of it.
Yeah,
and it is a huge place. They take a lot of time with those tours too, and they do a lot with the tours.
Very good tours, and it is accessible. Like there was a lady in a wheelchair, so it is like accessible to everyone. There's elevators and things, and obviously there's walking involved, and some of it's outside walking, but it is accessible. So it's nice that almost anyone can enjoy the tour too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed that tour, and like I said, I've been on it before, but it's one that every time you go, you can pick up something new.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the tour guide last time telling us about the Just Add Yeast, basically. You know,
I remember that. I mean, I remember hearing that a long time ago.
I might not have been listening also.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's just a cool facility to see because it is just massive and just everything that they can.
The last thing that was kind of like a takeaway from me, and then I did more digging on it and found a really interesting like flyer. So they had mentioned briefly like how committed they are to drinking responsibly. Mm-hmm. And then when I was going through and prepping notes for this and stuff, that started a long time ago. They have always been very committed to you have to drink responsibly and don't drink and drive and all those types of things. So that is a massive part of their marketing effort too.
Good.
There's flyers, and I'll post it on Instagram. There's like an original flyer from over 100 years ago that, you know, says they're committed to, you know, drinking responsibly. So I'll post that because it was really cool.
Well, that's good.
And then I think they've had some commercials like that.
Yeah.
And,
well, sometimes I see, I mean, I don't watch television, regular television, or see commercials that much anymore. But when I used to see commercials with stuff like that, it would always just, at the end, it was just, please drink responsibly, or we're committed to responsible drinking. And a lot of times I was just like, well, you're just plastering that all over because you have to, or something like that. Like,
I think they genuinely are focused a lot on the quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And that shows in their business practices too.
Yeah.
I know I said that was the last thing, but another thing I found that was really surprising is just like how committed they are to environmental impact as well. So they have taken, and this was part of, I don't think this was part of our tour. Maybe it was the last tour I did. But they walked through how, compared to other industry leaders, the differences they are making in their eco practices to make less of an impact. Mm-hmm. So like all around, it's like just very interesting.
Yeah, well, they try to recycle. They talked about that when we were there. Like,
it's just different than so many companies nowadays that don't care. They just want to make money. And I know it's a corporation. I get it. They want to make money. I totally get it. But to even just mention those things is more than other companies do. So to take it a step further and be more inclusive of those practices is really interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, again, we go back to what we talked about at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You can't talk about Budweiser without talking about the Clydesdales.
I know. Yeah, I love the Clydesdales. So I have like, we heard about this in the tour too, but in 1933 is when August Busch Jr. and Adolphus Busch surprised their father, August Sr., with the gift of a 6-horse Clydesdale hitch to commemorate the repeal of Prohibition. Mm-hmm. And so we got to see on the tour like the steps where the dad sat when they presented these Clydesdales to him. That was really cute. Yeah.
And the story that the tour guide told was that the son was like, "Hey, Dad, I bought this new car. You should come out and see it." And the old man was like, "What are you doing spending money? Like, you know what? That's dumb."
Yeah, right after Prohibition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he came out to see this. You know, he had painted one of the beer wagons bright red, which is the ones that you see in the commercials and things nowadays. Mm-hmm. And they said he sat down on the steps of what is the schoolhouse, which we talked about, and just started basically weeping. Yeah. That's cool. Like, that's a nice story.
It's such a good story. So So cute. And that's when the Clydesdales really started to be more present in their marketing as well. So after Prohibition, they did a tour. So I think they had 2 hitches doing this tour, but they hit New York for sure because they did a whole East Coast thing. Crowds of thousands to the Empire State Building. And then there was a small ceremony. They presented stuff to the governor because I think the governor of New York at that time was fighting against Prohibition or to repeal it.
Okay.
Anyways, then they did like a New England tour and stopped in Washington, D.C. in 1933 and to reenact the delivery.
Yeah. They delivered it to the White House and gave it to the president.
to FDR.
Yeah.
So, like, reenacted the first case of Budweiser being delivered, but this time to FDR. So that was cool. I don't know if there's a picture of that. I didn't look. Probably not.
Know. There
Maybe.
probably is. I'm sure somebody has a picture of it.
But yeah, just such a cute story, and so
yeah. And you can see the Clydesdales. They still go out to a lot of events now,
and they've got much more now. 1950, I think, is when they introduced a lot more teams into the number of teams that they have today, and they separated it by region. So I think there's different hitches in different regions, and then near us, Warm Springs Ranch is like the breeding facility.
Yep. And then Grant's Farm is where they train them on how to actually,
how
to actually
regal
be
animals that they are.
One of the animals in the hitch, which is interesting.
And then I always liked the Dalmatians growing up. That was another 1950 ad. So now a Dalmatian travels with each of the hitches, which I think historically they were for protection.
Yeah.
Nowadays they're just super friggin' cute.
Yeah. Nowadays they're just
so cute.
To be there.
And the thing that always gets me. So, were you ever a Cardinals fan?
I mean, I'm not a big baseball fan in general.
Yeah.
I'll root for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, I grew up loving the Cardinals, screaming for Albert Pujols, screaming for Yachty, just diehard loved the Cardinals growing up. Because I was born in St. Louis, my family's from there. My parents loved the Cardinals. Opening day of the Cardinals game, which I've never been in person. We've only watched on TV, but I still get goosebumps. I watched this video last night, and I got goosebumps on my arms. I'm going to post it because opening day for the Cardinals, they always bring the one of the hitches of the Clydesdales out with Dalmatian, the drivers, and do a lap around the field as the organ is playing, That's cool. The Budweiser song. And
King of Beers or whatever the name of the song is.
People cry.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps. It's wild. That's one of my favorite, when I think of the Clydesdales, that's what I think of is opening day for the Cardinals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Such a cool moment. So I'll post a video of that on our Instagram, I think.
That makes sense. Because that's cool. And I mean, they also they have a theme park. There's theme park. Busch Gardens is a theme park. And
a lot of people know the Clydesdales from some of the famous commercials, like the 9/11 commercial where they bow.
Yep.
There's a lot of them, like the puppy love ones. Anytime there's a puppy in them, a lot of people love those during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Clydesdales are an iconic part of that company now.
Iconic.
But yeah, they used to own the St. Louis Cardinals. The family did, and that's why we have Busch Stadium.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's why it's named Busch Stadium.
I think so.
I don't know why else it would be named anything.
Once again on this podcast, we kind of know. We don't really know.
But I remember watching a history of Busch Gardens in Tampa at one point, and there was a brewery down there. That's what it started as, was a brewery, and then it eventually built up to be a
Anheuser-Busch purchased the Cardinals in 1953, and 1 month later bought Sportsman's Parks from the St. Louis Browns and renamed it Busch Stadium. Sorry.
Yeah.
I figured I'd fact check that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's...
Yeah, I've been to the spring training and down in Florida and stuff. They've got so much all over.
Yeah.
The commercials especially, I think, are what a lot of people know Budweiser for, not just the Clydesdales. So beyond just the Clydesdales.
My favorite was the frogs.
I was just gonna say, did you see the frogs ones? That was probably, and I think they've remade it a couple times too.
Have they?
Yeah.
My favorite was the frogs.
They remade it I think a couple years ago, and instead of a frog in the middle, it's like a gecko or something, and it's like a comedy. But the original one with just the frogs saying Budweiser is funny. Yeah, I think my favorite commercial, I don't know what year it was. It was the Best Buds one, where the puppy like falls out of the truck or something as they're making a delivery and gets lost and then comes back home. And when he's really close to the farm, which I think is supposed to be Warm Springs Ranch or was filmed there or something, there's a wolf in the woods. And then, you know, the wolf's growling at the puppy's cowering, and then the Clydesdales, you hear them like beating on the doors of the stables, they all break out and they just like surround the puppy, and then the wolf runs off and they all come back home. And I was like, that's so cute. The Clydesdales protected the puppy. I know it's not real, but it was so cute. So that was always my favorite of the Budweiser commercials.
That's a nice one.
Yeah. Super not realistic, but extremely adorable. They did their marketing job well.
Well, they're putting a lot of money into those things. So
yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I recommend going to that for sure.
They have a little beer garden next to it if you have time. We didn't have time, but you can, get lunch and stuff there. It's definitely worth a visit.
Yeah, and it's cheap. What was it, $10 for the tour?
Yeah, it was pretty cheap. And granted, we did the lower tier one, but still pretty affordable and includes a tasting and things. So.
Yeah, and that was, don't drink and drive.
Drink responsibly.
Yeah, drink responsibly, don't drink and drive. But we had a lot of fun. So, we recommend anybody, especially if you just want to know more about St. Louis, like that's an iconic part of St. Louis.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
The brewery, you'll see signs for it all over the place. It's like you said, it's a landmark. It's a historic landmark. So
the brewery complex is.
Yeah. And it's just south of downtown, so it's really easy to get to.
Really easy to
find and things like that too. But I think that's hold on, there we go. That's the button. Anyway, facts.
So mine is about Anheuser-Busch.
Okay.
So they are a major charitable supporter. Obviously, a lot of big companies are. But I looked at what specifically they do, because some companies say that but then don't list like what they've actually supported. So I was looking at just what they supported. I thought it was interesting. They've donated millions and millions of cans of water to disaster relief.
Yeah, they do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was like since the 80s.
Yeah.
Or even earlier. I can't remember. But that was interesting.
They already have the water filtration for the beer.
Yes,
and exactly. And they have the packaging. So it's just right in and right out. And they just...
So that was interesting. And then they also do a lot of work with organizations that help veterans get different forms of assistance. And that was good. And then I kind of already touched on this, but they support a lot of environmental conservation projects.
Good.
So there were a ton of those too.
That's cool.
So I thought it was interesting to actually see what they do, not just hear, they support charities. Yeah. So.
Okay. So mine this week, again, kind of like last week, it's not Budweiser specific, it's St. Louis.
Okay,
So, and when we were there, what we did between these, since we had a good amount of time, so we went to lunch, and then we also went to the History Museum.
Yeah.
And one of the things we saw at the History Museum, they were doing a 1904 World's Fair exhibit. And you made the comment, holy crap, I didn't realize this thing was this big.
Massive.
Yeah. So it was the largest World's Fair in history.
I believe it. When we saw that scale model, I was like, that's like palaces. Like 12, was it, how many palaces was it?
I don't remember how many palaces it was.
It was like 9 or 12, something. And like when we say palaces, we mean palaces.
Like huge building. Yeah. Like massive facilities.
Crazy.
It was 2 square miles. 1,272 acres with more than 1,500 buildings.
Crazy.
It was massive. Like it was huge. It had the festival hall held the world's largest pipe organ, which is interesting.
That's cool.
11 monumental palaces, each dedicated to a subject such as electricity, fine arts, horticulture, or machinery. 62 countries took part, and 42 states. It was just a huge thing. I really wish they still did things like this.
Yeah.
This is
and what blew my mind is they just tore that all down.
Yeah. There's only one left, and that is the
Wild.
art museum.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful if you go see it too.
Yeah.
And
we are gonna go see it.
We are gonna go see it. But it's crazy. Like it's so much stuff that they packed into this place.
I didn't realize. Obviously, I knew about the World's Fair. My grandma even had plates and stuff from it, and a lot of stuff that we inherited. But I never realized just how massive it was. Just insane.
Yeah, all of them. I mean, back in the day, they used to move all over the place. You know, the New York World's Fair was really big in the '60s and stuff like that. But it'd be cool if they still did things like this, because I mean, you don't really need to anymore, because the whole point was like
to experience other cultures,
and it was an exhibition. It was to show off what was new. And nowadays, with
you have the internet,
so it's immediate. Like as soon as something new comes out, it's like here's this. Look at this. This is cool.
Yeah.
And you don't need to have this big grand thing to do it anymore.
It still would be so cool to do.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
There was a bunch of things. There was a lot of food that came out of this too, like first time food things. I'm having a hard time finding what they were again.
Funnel cakes?
But
or am I just making that up? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what it was either.
I'm trying to get it. Sorry. Hold on.
It was something really random that nowadays we all know.
Yeah.
I feel like it was funnel cakes or something similar.
Well, this has pictures of ice creams, hamburgers, and hot dogs.
Oh.
So ice cream cones, hamburgers, and hot dogs. Yeah, I don't. But it also says these were not first things there, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just a big ordeal. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good plug for the exhibit at the it's the St. Louis History Museum in Forest Park, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we went there. It was very cool. Also highly recommend that. That was a good way. They have a little cafe. Like we spent a couple hours there because we had time in between other tours.
Yeah, and they have several. It's several. They're all smaller exhibits, but they have several.
Some of them are revolving. I think the World's Fair one stays, and then the others revolve. Right?
I don't know how long they stay.
So they had like a kids coloring exhibit. They had a pride exhibit. They had an airplane thing, I believe. Lots of good stuff that revolves.
But it's really cool to go see, and it's all free.
Yeah,
for the most part. So, and they get a little shop, you know.
Yes, they do have a little gift shop.
Always exit through the gift shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in St. Louis. We're going back in a couple weeks to do some more stuff, so that'll be fun as well. But yeah, it's that I just wish they would do things like this still. Like it says 20 million people visited.
That's wild. How many people are in the United States or were in the United States in 1904? I'm gonna look that up real quick. That's worth a quick search.
Yeah, I would guess a lot, but not not near what there is now.
Yeah, in 1904. 1904, the population of the United States was 82 million. So
a quarter.
Yeah.
A quarter of the country went to visit this.
Yes.
Well, and it's not actually all people from the U.S. It's probably people from all around the world.
Yeah, all around the world, too.
The equivalent of a quarter of the nation's population went to visit this.
That's still crazy because how much that it's such a massive cultural impact.
Yeah.
And then you have movies like Meet Me in St. Louis, and just everything about St. Louis at the time was booming. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah.
I agree. It's very interesting, and I do wish they still did stuff like that. But
yeah. But
we can't all have nice things.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I think that's it. Unless you have anything else for this week.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, we had fun on our trip. Like I said, we're going back.
Go do the Anheuser-Busch tour. Go to the St. Louis History Museum. All good places.
All good places to go and visit. And yeah, don't forget. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and we'll try to shout you out. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye.